I'd like to talk about why um, income inequality and wealth inequality are increasing, and not just increasing, but also accelerating. So, this chart from the Federal Reserve of the United States shows that most clearly. This is the net worth held by the top 0.1%, and their wealth is not just increasing, but it's also accelerating. It's increasing faster and faster, with some dips when there's a recession, um, but it recovers, and then once it recovers, it increases even faster than it did before the recession. And that's a pretty consistent trend. This is going all the way back to 1990, but this trend can be seen well before 1990. For comparison, the net worth by the 90th to 99th wealth percentiles, um, this is still increasing and also accelerating, but it's not accelerating as fast. And because it's not accelerating as fast, the overall effect is that even people who are very rich are falling behind the most rich people, certainly in the United States. Um, and this is expressed through this percentage, the share of net worth held by the top 0.1%. This is increasing in a linear fashion, as a percentage of overall wealth. It's only increasing, but this is um, just taking a fraction based off of the absolute chart where the richest people are pulling away faster and faster from everybody else. Um, and so it's fair to say that this inequality is not just increasing, but also accelerating. Um, and so when thinking about why it's accelerating, um, I want to highlight a few trends that is creating this increase in inequality. The first one is just how much more productive entrepreneurship is versus owning stocks versus um, raw labor, um, because it's creating the businesses that are creating the stocks. And then because there's asset bubbles, because the value of stocks is increasing, the people that increase the most in wealth are the entrepreneurs. And it's very good to own stocks, but it's even better to create stocks. And that's what these successful founders are doing. Um, and that creation of stocks is driven by technology and productivity improvements. And I'm not just talking about AI, I'm not just talking about YouTube, but even just basic machines increases productivity. And the people that benefit from productivity are the people that can leverage it the most effectively. And the people who are leveraging it the most effectively are the people that end up in the top 0.1%. And the third underlying trend that I want to highlight is the creation of winner take all markets. And that's part of the fallout of the productivity improvements and part of the fallout of technology improvements. Um, it's not just owning a store in a city, it's not just owning a store chain in the Southeast United States, it's owning a website that can basically ship anywhere in the world a product that people want. And so when there's one company that gets the best discounts on products because it has volume, and when it's the company that everybody knows to go to because it has the most investment in giving people what they want, then these winner-take-all markets tend to concentrate wealth in a very small group of people who own those companies, and mostly the people that created those companies in the first place. Those are the kind of people that are sitting in the top 0.1%. And certainly, they're the people sitting in the top 0.1% in the United States. And that's the thing that I want to get to next is that this chart is not as dramatic in the United Kingdom as it is in the United States. Sure, inequality is increasing in the United Kingdom, but it's not increasing at the same rate as it is in the United States. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the first reasons is that there's a lot of billionaires that are leaving the UK. It's just that when you have productive individuals that decide to leave the UK, it artificially lowers the perception of how much net worth is held by the top 0.1% if some of them just get up and leave, taking their wealth with them. That compresses the chart so that in the UK, their net worth chart looks a lot more like this for the top 0.1% than like this. One of the other aspects of the United Kingdom is that there's a higher percentage of dark money in the UK compared to the US, and a lot of the gains that billionaires have had is hidden in dark money assets that don't get tracked by these sort of net worth trackers. In comparison, for the US, the percent of overall net worth held in these dark money untracked locations is maybe 1%, possibly lower. One thing to say is that the US, as the primary economy, is very motivated to make sure that it has all of its net worth properly accounted for. And if other smaller countries like the UK have some leakage, it's not exactly the US's problem. So with the US, it's very, very, very careful to make sure that there's a very minimum of secret offshore assets, whereas for other countries, they're much more exposed to offshore hidden accounts because the US has already solved its problem. So with the UK, it just sort of has more because it doesn't have the backing of the number one economy to make sure that all of its assets are exposed and taxed properly. And then the final element of why the UK isn't seeing such a dramatic increase in net worth held by the top 0.1% is what I would call the billionaire productivity crisis, which sounds kind of funny because it's not like the billionaires are suffering. Their lines are still going up and to the right, but they're not going up and to the right as hard or as dramatic as the net worth for the top 0.1% in the US. This is what I would call the middle class squeeze, but for the rich. When it comes to winner take all markets, it doesn't really matter that it's whether you're looking at, everyone. If you're looking at the top 10%, if you're looking at the top 1%, if you're looking at the top 0.1%, it doesn't even matter if you're looking at the top 10 people, the top 10 richest people in the entire world. You're going to see the same sort of shape where the richest person is going to do so much better than the next richest person, where the top 1% of people are going to be doing so much better than the top 10% of people. It's just that the shape is going to be fairly consistent, because the trends are sort of consistent. The squeeze is sort of experienced by everybody, but it's just that when the squeeze is happening for the top 0.1%, it might be a little less noticed and a little less cared about for the other 99.9%, but it's still happening. And so when the top 0.1% of Britain is underperforming compared to the top 0.1% of the US, that's exactly the kind of dynamics at play. And that's why the effect of inequality is felt between the US and the UK, and also felt between the rich in the UK and the not so rich in the UK. And so those are three things that are affecting the income inequality in the UK, and why it's not as dramatic, and why the absolute increase of wealth in the UK is not as dramatic as it is in the United States. And I want to end this video on one final note, which is that you might not have seen any charts from the UK. And the reason why is because data collection in the UK for wealth and other economic statistics doesn't exist in the same way that it does for the US. And this absolutely affects the productivity of people who are doing business, people who are doing economics in the UK, where they don't just have the same numbers, they don't have the same decision-making quality or capacity. When it comes to the best decision makers in the UK making the best decisions, they're not going to be making the highest quality decisions compared to the top decision makers in the US. The US decision makers have the data at their disposal, and the decision makers in the UK do not. And so that's translating in part to a productivity crisis for billionaires. It might not feel like that the missing data is such a big deal, but it manifests in these kinds of charts and this kind of disparity in income equality. And so I would sort of recommend that when the UK is looking for how to increase its productivity, when it's looking to increase its net worth, when it's looking to increase government revenue, it ought to look into ways like having reliable economic data that allows its businesses to make correct decisions, to make correct investments, and that way those correct decisions can lead to the productivity and income improvements that can filter back into tax revenue, that can filter back into funding the government on a daily basis for regular people. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below.